Well, for more, I'm joined now by Sydney University Professor Richard Broinowski, who was Australia's ambassador to South Korea in the late 80s. Professor, welcome. Would there be a great sense of relief in South Korea today?
I don't know about a sense of relief. I think there's been a lot of anxiety confected about the whole missile test. I think the North Koreans have handled this whole experiment rather well by inviting journalists to come and look at the rocket, by inviting them to look at the satellite that goes on top of the rocket, and yet we still have people suggesting that this was some kind of a missile test. The fact is, Joe, that like nuclear technology, there's dual use. You can have a three-stage rocket to launch a missile, or you can to launch a weapon, or you can have a three-stage rocket to launch a satellite. What the North Koreans were trying to do was a very ambitious program, was to launch a geostationary satellite above Korea that would have to go up to 33,000 kilometres. It's a hell of a long way, and they haven't succeeded in even putting a low orbit satellite up yet. So it's quite a stretch. And I think probably the North Koreans behaved with a good deal of courage to invite the press, the Western press, in and show them the whole shooting match, and then say, we're going to send this up, and it's going to celebrate Kim Il-sung's 100th birthday. And it seems to have failed, all right, but then you can always learn from failures, as a rather portentous American commentator said this morning. The fact is, Joe, that the South Koreans have launched ballistic missiles. No one's complained. No one said this is obviously got a weapons capability. The Japanese have too. And
so you think it was a bit rich of the international community to be up in arms about North Korea launching this rocket?
May I say, I don't think it's the international community, Joe. I think it's the United States and many of its friends. It's not the whole of the world that's up in arms about North Korea. And I think we have to agree that, yes, the North Koreans did have an agreement with the United States not to launch a missile. Now, there's an ambiguity there. Was it to be a military missile, or was it to be a vehicle to launch a satellite? If the latter, then they probably haven't breached in the spirit what they were saying to the United States.
We've talked to other experts in the last couple of days who've said there is no doubt that this was a test of ballistic missile technology.
It's the same technology, of course it was, but you use the same ballistic missile technology to launch satellites as you do to deliver a bomb.
Yeah. Okay, so how much of an embarrassment was it that this failed?
To the North Koreans, they seem to have a hide like a rhinoceros, and it seems to me that they're probably thinking, all right, well, we'll get something good out of this, and we did launch it. And I mean, there might be even some who say, look, we put it into space. We don't know. But I think probably with all the modern communications, and you alluded to this earlier about the internet and email and so on, I don't think they can avoid the probable conclusion that we're not yet absolutely certain about that the thing failed. But look, they followed all the rules of international engagement. They had telecommunications approval to do this. They put a maritime and an air approval to the respective international authorities. They did everything they could. They also had the press in to have a look at the whole thing. So they behaved with a great deal of transparency, and for those who are determined to look at the dark side of North Korea all the time, and indeed there is a dark side, but to suggest that this was simply an example of nuclear missile technology and they were disguising it as satellite launch, I think is a bit of a stretch.
But there is speculation now that the North is going to go ahead with a nuclear test. There's been activity in the nuclear test area. What do you think of the North going down that path? Is that something completely different?
I say what I've said before, Joe, and that is that we shouldn't have double standards here. We should engage, not we, the United States principally, should engage North Korea on a one-to-one relationship basis to work out about testing and about not having them. It's undesirable.
Not going through China?
Well, use China too, of course, China and Russia if necessary. Use the six-power talks, use South Korea as well, and Japan. All these countries are involved. The thing that worries me is that if North Korea succeeds, and it already has in establishing itself as having the nuclear weapons technology, this encourages South Korea, who've also had a nuclear weapons program in the past, and Japan. And let's forget, the Japanese prime ministers have said repeatedly over the years, we should have a nuclear weapons deterrent capability. And I'll say that what needs to be done is more talk.